Yeah, I think it's going now.
Very well done. Great.
It's working now.
I believe we're live, yeah.
What? Okay, now we need
Hello,
to
everyone.
just
So
Ryan
apologies
back
for
here.
the delay. We had a slight technical issue there. Thank you very much for Tom for jumping on and helping us sort that out. And we had Ryan on the line a minute ago, so I think Ryan will rejoin us in a moment. Ryan being the proposer of SIP 13. So yeah, welcome to this AMA and governance call. Apologies for the delay once again. Henry, welcome to the call. Good to have you here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. I'm just messaging Ryan, trying to get him back.
Yeah. Quick ask to Tom or anyone else in the community, if you could just message Ryan and ask him to rejoin via Zoom, that would be great. Okay.
He reacted to my message like this, so he's coming.
Okay, fantastic. Good stuff. Good old technical problem with the live call. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're up and running now, so that's the most important thing. So quick introduction for myself. I'll be hosting today. Obviously, Henry is going to address most of the SIPs and the questions from the community. We've got some questions from Discord, which Henry's addressed some of those already, and we'll touch on those again. And then there's going to be live questions as well. So please post your live questions in the YouTube comments, and we'll collate those and take those as well. So yeah, it's been some time since we did a governance AMA. I think the last one was with regards to SIP 3 and SIP 6. For those of you that are not aware and are new to the community, I'm happy to say the community is growing as well. So we might have some Streamr noobs on the call. SIP stands for Streamr Improvement Proposal, obviously. And voting has already started for these SIPs, but it's still active on Snapshot. Henry, could you just give a little overview of the kind of Snapshot process for those that are new to it?
Yeah, sure. So it basically works just like any other DApp. You'd go there with your browser. You can, click to vote on a proposal. It pops up your MetaMask or whatever browser wallet you're using and signs your vote with that wallet, and that's pretty much it. It supports MetaMask as well as Wallet Connect and a bunch of other types or methods of connecting to your wallet. So hopefully it will work for everyone. And it's quite easy to use. One kind of concern that we had with this round of governance is that now there's quite a lot of tokens that are staked on the Brubeck network, and those tokens have voting power as well. But since they're not going to be in your MetaMask wallet or so forth, it's kind of harder to vote with those tokens. So depending a little bit on how many nodes you're running and so on, you might just want to import the private keys to your MetaMask and then do it kind of manually, clickety-click through all of those. Or if you're more of a power user, there's also now the voting functionality built into the command line interface tool, which you can kind of use to programmatically vote with, all your private keys. If you're running 100 nodes, it's fine. You can still vote with all those wallets by using the command line tool. And there's a blog post about it. So I hope people are able to follow that one.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Henry. So the blog post is at blog.streamr.network/voting with staked data tokens. So you should be able to see it on the blog homepage, and the snapshot location is snapshot.org/#/streamer.eth. So yeah, just search for Stream on the Snapshot platform and you'll find it relatively easily. Before we go on, I'm just going to introduce Ryan to the call. So Ryan is the proposer of SIP 13, which we'll get into in a moment. And it's very late where Ryan is, so Ryan's calling in from Sydney. Ryan, do you want to say hello?
Hey, thank you for listening in. I really appreciate the fact that I got an invite.
Thanks so much for joining us so late in the night, your time. I was saying to Ryan earlier, he looks fresher than I do at midday UK time. So Not sure what his secret is, but Ryan, great to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us, and looking forward to talking SIP 13 in a bit. Okay, so we've done the introduction. Let's get into the SIPs now. So we've got SIP 9 through to 13, so quite a bit to get through. Just to note, there was a SIP 14 proposal from Render in the Discord community. That's since been withdrawn for reasons we won't go into now. So SIP 9 through to 13. So kicking off, SIP 9, just to give a very brief overview, this is a follow-on from SIP 6, in which minting of 100 million data tokens was approved at that point in time. And due to change in market conditions, SIP 9 has been proposed. Henry, could you give a quick overview on SIP 9, what it is exactly, and the kind of reasons for and against as you see it?
Oh yeah, definitely. So just to give you a bit like of an extended background, perhaps, all crypto projects fund themselves by selling tokens, and usually there's like several parts to that, or several time frames. The project would first, around the time of the token launch, like sell a bunch, and typically that money would be used to build the project. And then commonly there's a treasury that is then used more over time, and especially like once the product has been built, to kind of grow the ecosystem and maintain it long term and so forth. And Streamr is no different. We launched the token in 2017 and raised a bunch of capital to build the protocol, and we are still on that journey. But the end is in a way starting to be in sight. The funding from the token launch is going to last until late next year, late 23, and also the last milestone on the initial roadmap, Tatum, will be reached next year as well. So that's all going exactly as planned. And now the question is, okay, like then what? What happens after the initial funding runs out? And the Streamr project has a big supply of unused tokens, sort of. They don't exist, but they can exist through creating them through governance proposals. Now, those of you who have been with us for a long time know that that wasn't always the case. In 2017, it was so early, nobody really knew like how these crypto projects are going to work from a token economical point of view. So it was very rare to have a big treasury reserved for the long term of the project. I guess at the time, people were a little bit more short-sighted than nowadays. Typically nowadays, when new projects launch, they reserve quite a big part of the token supply into a reserve that is typically controlled by the token holders in some way, signing off like how it can be used and so forth. And Streamr didn't have this in the beginning, but we established it through SIP 1, which is the very first governance proposal. And that led to the token migration, where basically like the maximum supply of tokens was raised from 1 billion to 2 billion, therefore creating like this untapped supply. And the rules of using that supply is exactly that none of it can be used without a governance proposal. And that's where SIP 6 and SIP 9 and also the SIPs that establish like the Brubeck mining rewards and so forth come in, because those proposals are exactly related to using part of that reserve unused supply for particular things. And now fast forwarding to SIP 6. And SIP 6 proposed that the project would sell 100 million tokens to VCs to raise around 15 to 20 million USD in cash, and to use that to fund like the next steps of the project. Now this was definitely like a bull market idea. And at the time, the price of the data token was, around 15 cents and so on, and it all seemed pretty realistic. But then the market crash happened. We weren't able to act on it fast enough. And that opportunity is to some extent now gone. And we are in the market situation that we are. Everyone's been reading the news, and this year has been like almost defined by one crypto disaster after another, starting from the Terra Luna mess and now the FTX and everything. So there's definitely like very low confidence in the market at the moment, and it would not make sense to try and raise a bunch of capital for the next phase of the project with these market conditions. I believe the VCs are basically like hands off. They're not doing anything at the moment. The project could go and sell tokens on the open market, but it doesn't make sense to lock in the current prices. So that brings us to SIP9, which basically proposes that 100 million tokens that was already decided in SIP6 to be used for like next stage of funding, we would still be using that same 100 million tokens for the next stage of funding, but in a slightly different way. So instead of kind of selling them to VCs or whoever in one go and locking in whatever price level there is at the time, we would kind of earmark them to be spent on project expenses more like as we go, So, and the project won't need that money until late next year, right? Because the initial funding will get us to that point. So yeah, that is essentially the proposal, that this money could be used as a kind of bridge funding to secure the medium term of the project. It's not a long-term solution, depending a little bit on how the market develops. We'd have to make some decisions about the long term, but it's much easier to make decisions when you have some visibility into how things are going. And right now, the visibility is pretty limited. So, we're still working towards the last milestone. The market is in chaos. So what can we really say about the future, and can we really make good decisions about it? Hardly, right? So this is more like a decision to, at least there's some way to, get through to, 2024 and so forth. And then hopefully things will be a little bit less volatile and more stable. We're hopefully seeing growth in adoption of the protocol in 2023 and so forth. So we'll be in a much better position to also think about what kind of long-term strategy there should be for using that untapped supply and to fund the project growth in the longer term. And that's what the proposal is. I did some pros and cons analysis, as I usually do in the proposal. So, how to shoot this proposal down, I think would be, it's not solving the long-term funding needs. Project can't just go and print money all the time to sustain itself. It's not a sustainable business model, or what do you want to call it? We don't get the backing of VCs by spending this on expenses, which is true. And of course, like we're kind of betting that things get a little bit better from where they are now. That might not happen. The whole crypto market could just get destroyed. Everything could go to zero. Like, who really knows? So it's not a surefire way to guarantee the next steps for the project or anything like that, but it would be much better to have this possibility in the back pocket rather than not have it. And the clear case for the proposal is that, hey, this is a way forward. It's a very valid way. All the projects fund their operations by selling tokens. Make no mistake about it. That's how it works. Many projects have like some component in the token economy, like a protocol fee or something that can generate more of a revenue thing, but that requires like quite big organic adoption, and there's not many crypto projects that are at that stage yet. For sure, that's an option for Streamr as well. There could be a protocol fee from from what happens in the bounties and delegation agreements and so on from Tatum onwards, but that's like a topic for the next governance rounds, not quite yet. But all of that is on the table. I think what's nice about this particular proposal is that the token holders kind of already accepted the idea of raising funding with this 100 million tokens. Of course, the time frame now may be shorter than during that peak of the bull market when the SIP6 proposal was originally posted. But anyway, this is not kind of asking for some new tokens that aren't yet approved, but rather kind of asking again for the same tokens with a slightly different use of those tokens.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Very clear. Thanks, Henry, for the overview and explanation. Okay, so I hope that's clear for everyone listening. We'll jump into a few questions. We've kind of covered these questions already in Discord, so really it's for the benefit of the people that haven't had the chance to go in there. We'll keep it light touch because we have covered them already. And then we can go into live questions if there are any on SIP9. So question one was from Penfold07, and very straightforward question. Does Streamr publish how their budget is spent each year, trying to get a handle on the project costs? So he's better informed on that front.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's exactly right to call for transparency, especially after the FTX catastrophe. So I'm all for that. So far, we've published like the total yearly spend, but not like really detailed breakdowns about how exactly the money has been spent. I hope that the output from the team has been kind of in line with expectations and the spending. So it should be quite clear that we're not just partying on some super yachts on the ocean, drinking frozen margaritas. We're actually heads down at work and shipping and building this tech. But I think especially as we start to move into the territory where the original token launch funding is going to be spent up, and the future of the project will be more relying on this untapped supply, then like really having full transparency there will be crucially important. So I think that's something that will need to happen more and more. And of course, the project itself will become and has already become kind of a bit more decentralized. So it's nowhere near just the like original founding team anymore that is kind of responsible for using the ICO funds, but it's like it's a broader group, and the money that would be used like from that untapped supply, starting with SIP9 and maybe later proposals, should be like fully controlled by the DAO, fully controlled by the token holders, with governance proposals that specify how the money shall be spent, right? And that also, and then have a follow-up mechanism to see like whether it was actually spent like that. So that will really be needed.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a future SIP right there. I know it's also from last week, I think it was last week anyway, CZ and some other prominent CEOs of centralized exchanges were calling for proof of treasury and using blockchain technologies to do that, such as zero knowledge proof. So, it's a positive thing. I think the whole industry is going in that direction.
Oh, yeah. And the centralized exchanges have been like the biggest black boxes, so to say, in the whole industry, and they have a huge amount of power. So I think that in general, the recent developments are kind of good in the sense that maybe we can start to see inside those black boxes a little bit, which I think improves the whole space. And other projects, of course, like especially if you have like on-chain treasuries and you'd use them via on-chain votes and multi-sigs and stuff, then you already have transparency like built in from the start. That should be the future for many projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And leveraging trustless technology. Okay, so the next question on SIP 9 was from Farmer George, who had quite a few questions across the SIPs actually. So we'll go into more questions from Farmer George. But with regards to SIP 9, his comment was that this has the potential to have the exact opposite effect on the value of data, not only because of the inflationary effect. We're talking about 10% of the current supply. So please don't tell me it won't have an impact on the price of data, but more important is the image of the token. Nobody's going to take the token seriously anymore. What do we then do in 2024? So a bit of a challenge there from Farmer George, but yeah, it'd be good if you could comment on that one, Henry. I know you did in Discord already, but just to recap.
Yeah, we had good discussions on Discord yesterday with Farmer George and others. So thanks for challenging the proposals. I think that's exactly right. Like this would be like a kind of meaningless process if nobody challenged or asked questions. I think it's absolutely crucial to have this kind of checks and balances system that somebody proposes something and then others try to shoot it down. It's perfectly fine, and the proposals must stand like scrutiny and critique. So yeah, I mean, it's fair critique that maybe underlying his thinking is that project should have like a more sustainable business model instead of just like tapping into that reserve. But the reserve is there for a reason, and that reason is growth. So once the product has been built and reached like version 1.0 or kind of technical maturity, the next step will be to focus fully on growth and adoption of that technology. And that does require funds in a similar way that building the thing requires funds. So the goal is definitely to make it more self-sustainable, but all of the successful protocols that we see today have kind of gotten there by using their reserves. And like I said on Discord, my concern personally is more on the other end, that hey, maybe we are not using enough of these tokens to fuel growth. Like, are we being too careful and losing for that reason? That's a risk too. As well as the other end of the spectrum is also a risk that we're just madly printing money and it's getting wasted with no improvement to the project and the protocol and so forth. So that's the kind of spectrum that we are navigating. But just to point out like the mathematical effect, everyone's been like so concerned about dilution and so forth already in earlier SIPs. Like when I proposed that, hey, let's add 2% inflation rate to kind of reward the miners in the Brubeck network, everyone was like, oh no, supply inflation. But really 2% per year is very small, right? And this even this 10% that's being proposed in SIP 9 is rather small. Like, have you seen the volatility in the crypto market? Like, things are going up and down like 20% every day. So mathematically, if we increase the supply by 10%, and all of that would immediately enter circulation, which it won't, but let's assume that the worst case, that it would, then the price would come down by 10% and not more. So I think the dilution effect is rather limited and not really like very good argument, like given the general volatility in the space. But Farmer George's point of more important is the image of the token. I agree with that. Like there needs to be a plan. There needs to be a long-term plan that is credible and good. But I guess my argument with SIP9 is that now is not a good time to make that long-term plan, because nobody knows what 23 or 24 are going to look like, let alone beyond that. Like, how would you make a 10-year plan today, right? You'd have to revise and change that plan like 2 or 3 years down the road, because the space will just be very different from what it is today. So I would kind of take one step at a time. Let's do this step, then see where we are, then take the next step, and so forth and so forth.
Okay. Thanks for that piece of commentary, Henry. If you want to get into more detail on that particular discussion topic, jump into the governance channel and Discord. At the moment, we have no questions coming through live with regards to SIP9, so we'll move on. If there are any questions with regards to SIP9 retrospectively at the end of the call, we'll take them then, of course. So do fire those questions out should you have any. Okay, moving on to SIP10, which again is a follow-on of a previous SIP, SIP3, in relation to how data union tokens are allocated to current data token holders. There's a change, the proposal is a change in the percentage there. I'll let Henry give his commentary and overview of the proposal. And again, reasons for and against, that would be great.
Yeah, so this relates to the data union spin-off that we've been planning to do, and which was approved in SIP3. So just to give you the background, like data unions is a piece of technical what's a technical framework for building applications that reward like communities or crowds of users for the data that they are sharing. And we built that as part of the Streamr project originally as a use case for the Streamr network, but then there was like pretty nice traction in this particular kind of segment of use cases. You know, there was Swash, Demo, all these like new builders coming in and finding value in this particular use case. So SIP3 decided to spin that framework off as a separate project and launch a separate token for it. But since the kind of beginnings of that project were under the Streamr project and was funded by Streamr, it would be fair that the Streamr community gets something back as well. So we're kind of spinning something out, but getting something back. And the kind of price of that spin-off in that governance proposal was determined to be 40% of the token supply. Now, that also happened during like the bull market and when things were still fine in the crypto space. And, you know, to be honest, in 21, it would have been much easier to raise funding, definitely. Everyone was more optimistic about the future of the space and so on. But, you know, we just weren't fast enough. It takes a bit of time to, you know, set up everything for fundraising. So we kind of lost the market. Now when the time would have been ripe for doing that fundraising for the data union DAO. And it is currently kind of struggling to do that. Now is a very difficult time to be raising funding. As I mentioned, the VCs are like, you know, they have their purse like tightly zipped at the moment, and especially if there's some concerns that they have about a project that can really block funding. And when talking to these VCs with the Data Union DAO team, I think one thing that we've noticed or they've noticed is that this 40% allocation to data holders is just too big. I mean, they see it as a red flag. They're like, hey, come on, guys, what is this? And during the optimistic bull market, maybe it would have been okay, we would have gotten away with it. But in these conditions, I would say like definitely not. So that's why I'm proposing to reduce that allocation. And why am I proposing 15% instead of 40%? Well, now there's some kind of analogs in the space. So back when we decided about it, like it hadn't happened much. There hasn't been like spin-offs or demergers that much in the crypto space, but now there's a couple that I'm aware of, at least. Maybe you guys know more, but there's a couple of spin-offs from Gnosis. In particular, there's the Safe, which is the multisig product that they've built, as well as CowSwap. And in CowSwap, the Gnosis DAO gets 10% of the CowSwap token supply as a compensation for the spin-off. And in the Safe product, that's 15%. So, okay, it's not much of a statistic. It only has 2 data points, but we can maybe see that what the kind of accepted range might be, or at least a ballpark of 10 to 15%. So that's where the 15 comes from, that, okay, it's justifiable in some way. There's something else in the space that has kind of worked with these numbers, and it's just not something that we randomly pull out of our back pocket, kind of like was done in the original SIP3 proposal. Of course, the data community voted for a high number, but I think given the information that we have now, it was probably too greedy because it didn't leave enough tokens into the project reserve. And we've just been talking about the importance of the reserve. So, you have to leave a certain share there. And I think that's why the VCs see it as a problem, that the reserve that remains is too small. So in effect, like by reducing the allocation to data holders, we ensure a bigger reserve, which makes the project more viable and increases its chance of success. So, in the pros and cons analysis, the way that I'd like to see it is that it's much better to get 15% out of something that's potentially successful rather than 40% of something that is just not going to fly. It's not going to even get off the ground. So it really is a bit of a blocker at the moment, in my view, and that's why I'm proposing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Henry. Very clear. Okay, so a couple of questions on this one. The next one is from Farmer George. He said, why no compromise? Why just 15% yes or no? Basically, he would have preferred to have some choices and a spectrum on the kind of percentage. If there was a spectrum, he would have been more likely to vote rather than vote no. So, yeah, it'd be good if you could give a comment on that.
Yeah, well, this is just my proposal. It's 15% based on the talks with the VCs and the kind of the experiences. If I would propose something else, then I would kind of be proposing against my best guess or best view. So that's why I didn't do it. Also, if you offer multiple choices, then it kind of fragments also the votes. So I think that also happened a little bit in SIP3, the original one, where some big voters went for the 40%, and it's all fair enough, but the other options also got votes. So it was not like unanimous in any way. So I think it's better to just present this. The token holders will approve or reject. If they reject, then we have to do something else, whether it means like something of a pivot in the Data Union DAO spin-off, or rolling it back, kind of folding it back into Streamr or whatever. But I think the fundraising right now is like the big question that we have to somehow get through and keep working on. And if it's not going to be this 15%, then I view that it's going to be a problem for the fundraising.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Henry. Okay, so going off on a little bit of a tangent, but it kind of followed in the conversation flow in Discord. There's a question also from Farmer George, which was, why publish the proposals only 2 days before voting? Saying that it was not establishing a proper democratic discussion. And then Renderer also had a follow-on comment yesterday saying there were nice point of views from yesterday's discussion, but Renderer thinks we should work on a governance around schedules and agenda. As an example, for the next 6 months, an agenda may be related to X. We may focus proposals on X. There was more detail in Renderer's comment, which I won't go through now, but essentially there were calls for a bit of a review in terms of the way that we manage the SIP process. So yeah, Henry, it'd be good to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, why not? It would be fantastic to try and solve problems like together. I know there's a lot of smart people in the community, so that would definitely be the way to do it. Maybe the timeline this time turned out too rushed, and we'll definitely make note of that and allow more time next time around. I understand the impression that there's only 2 days time, but actually there's 9 days time from when the proposals were posted to the ending of the voting period. So there's 9 days, not 2 days. I agree, 2 days would not be enough. It's not clear how long a proper democratic discussion should take. Maybe even 9 days is not enough. So let's make it longer next time and try to solve these things together. But at the end of the day, there's a formal process. There are proposals. Sometimes good ideas may come up 1 day before the deadline. So who knows? It's not possible to always promise that everything will be discussed like months in advance or whatever. Anyone can really propose what they want, even 5 minutes before the deadline. So, it's a right that we all have as data token holders, applies to me as well as everyone else. But I fully, I'm not going to be defensive on this one. I agree with you guys.
Yeah,
let's take more time to discuss these tough choices and work on them together. But I know that there's going to be differing views in the community. So at the end of the day, I'm going to propose what I think is best, and someone else is free to propose what they think is best. But with those guys that are kind of agree on an approach, then would be great to make the proposals as good as possible, at least. There's never going to be unanimous decisions. That's why we have governance. Some people will like it, some people won't like it, but the end result should be like the result of our collective wisdom, the wisdom of the crowd. That's the power of democracy. I kind of believe in that, though. So if there's a bad proposal, it should get rejected. If there's a good one, it should get accepted. So there you have it.
Okay, thanks, Henry. I think for those that are involved in various DAOs, DAO governance is an ongoing challenge and something that needs ongoing focus. So comments noted from the community, and we'll take a look at that for sure, and we'll review that process. I'm just going to jump into a live question that's come through from Apologies if I get the pronunciation wrong. I'll try my best. Hema Kumar Massa. So the comment was, Dear Henry, why do you just, so this is in relation to the previous SIP 9. Dear Henry, why do you just want to raise funding but not focus on building partnerships with product-based companies to improve data token value? Why just focusing on launching new tokens? When can we expect crypto entrepreneurs to speak about its own community growth genuinely, rather than just raising ICO and leaving out the investors, for God's sake? So I think, yeah. So I think, Henry, you could answer this question, and then I have my own answer to that question as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bunch of questions there.
Yeah, I think the first question is probably the most important one, which is, why do you just want to raise funding but not focus on building partnerships with product-based communities to improve data token value?
Right, but like, how do you pay for that work, right? So those things are not mutually exclusive. Raising funding is for some purpose, which is to like support and grow the project. So that funding would be spent on exactly that, right? Building partnerships and building growth in the ecosystem. That is the very reason why that funding is needed.
Yeah, exactly. So my answer was going to be along similar lines, and yeah, I mean that's solely what the kind of commercial side of the team now do across marketing and business development, and that funding pays for those efforts in terms of community growth, but also partnerships, and partnerships translates into use of the protocol, which has network effects on the value of the data token over the long term. But of course, excuse me, that takes time to manifest in a Web3 industry that's still nascent. So we talked about this in the last Marketing AMA, which is also hosted on YouTube if you want to hear a bit more about that. But that's the approach here, as it is.
Maybe it's good to understand also like where we've been. We've been still building, and we're building a quite complicated and ambitious protocol here. So if the majority of the funding and the time has been so far spent on tech development, and that leaves only a smaller part in like growth efforts and partnerships, it doesn't make sense to waste a lot of money on partnerships and so forth if you don't have a product that's ready for use, right? And I think from the Brubeck milestone, that's the first time when the Streamr protocol has been kind of ready for action. And of course, the Tatum milestone will kind of close that loop. So if the majority of time and money has been spent on tech so far, this will kind of turn around. So when the product will be ready, will be at the last milestone, we can spend more effort on the growth and the partnerships, because then we have a product that's ready for action. Then we have some more resources, because we can scale down the development efforts a little bit and kind of spend those resources on the growth and so on. So the focus is shifting after that milestone from tech development to growth, right? And that needs ongoing funding. And in the question, there was a bit of an accusation of like raising funding in the beginning and not delivering. But I think, we have been delivering and building stuff. It's not like we ran off to the Bahamas with the money, So, we've been here all the time. And I think even built a reputation of being a reliable set of contributors working towards this vision. So, sure, it's fair to critique, and why are we focusing on fundraising? Fundraising is what enables everything else. Fundraising is like, it's an enabler. Nothing can happen without fundraising, and it's not easy actually. So,
well, especially in this market, but I think
in this market for sure, it's almost impossible in this market.
I think to your point, Henry, now that Brubeck has been launched and Tatum is coming early next year, it's an exciting point in time for the project as we sort of transition from delivery of the white paper to kind of growth phase of the project. So Yeah, lots to come in 2023. Okay, I'm going to move on in the interest of time. SIP 11, I think we're going to skip through this fairly quickly, if that's okay with you, Henry, but just give a quick overview. And the reason we're skipping through it fairly quickly is because there wasn't much discussion in Discord about it. Not that it's not an important proposal, but SIP 11 is with respect to the max amount of data that can be staked per node. And I'm sure that's a topic close to the hearts of many on this call today. But there was actually a question from Edra Gray. If approved, when will SIP 11 come into effect? Henry, any comments on that?
The devs are telling me that it's quite an easy change. It doesn't require anyone to, update the broker. It's only basically changing one value in the reward system. So maybe like right after the voting closes or from 1st of December, which is conveniently the next day, and quickly. Yeah.
Okay. And if there are any questions with regards to SIP 11, please fire them in the YouTube comments and we'll address them. Okay. SIP 12 then. This one was to drop the old XData token from the governance proposal in Snapshot. Henry, do you want to give an overview of that one?
Yeah, I mean, most of the community has migrated to the new token as expected. There's still a bunch of tokens that haven't migrated. 20%, 80% migrated, 20% not migrated. So what do we do? In this governance round, you can still vote with these XData tokens, but I guess at some point they need to be dropped as something that's not kind of valid anymore. Maybe that will kind of push the laziest token holders over the line to get their tokens migrated. I don't mind either way. This is more of a bookkeeping item that, okay, let's clean up a little bit. There is a technical reason as well. There's a limit to how many, they're called strategies in Snapshot you can have. And basically every token on every chain takes up one of those strategy slots. So, we can't keep it around forever, but maybe now would be a cool time to drop the XData. They have had 1.5 years time to migrate. The migration itself will be available for as long as the Ethereum chain exists. So maybe forever. But we can at some point just exclude them from the governance voting, and then if they want to vote, they can just migrate the tokens, which I think is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Clear. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move on to SIP 13, which, is kind of the big one in inverted commas. So this is a proposal from community member Ryan, who's on the call. Thanks again for joining us, Ryan, calling in from Sydney. So it's the middle of the night there. Let me give a quick overview of this proposal, and then we'll get into discussion around it. So in essence, the proposal is for integrating Kive and Arweave technologies to form a decentralized data pipeline governed by an EVM smart contract. So as the streamer data is moved to Arweave for permanent and decentralized storage by a Kive pool. So what is Kive? Let's just cover that off quickly. The Kive blockchain is a Cosmos-based blockchain responsible for drawing consensus on votes submitted by validators within a given pool. And therefore, a validator has two primary processes. One is to deterministically produce a bundle of data from some source, and then compare this produced bundle to a bundle that has been proposed, and then vote on whether the proposed bundle of data is valid. The result is a series of validated data sets stored on Arweave or some other storage blockchain. So that's an overview of what the proposal is about. It's about a decentralized storage solution for Streamr. The proposal comes in 2 milestones. The first is to build the Logstore node and Logstore EVM smart contract. And the second phase includes the development of optimizations, integrations, compatibility mechanisms, and UX. The proposal obviously goes into much more detail, so thank you to Ryan for putting that together. And if you want to read that proposal and you haven't read it yet, then go to the blog article, blog.streamr.network. It's the last one that's been published, and you'll see it there. We've got a few questions on this one. So yeah, Henry, I think it'd be good if we start with yourself, just to give your commentary as usual on this one, and any sort of overview of pros and cons.
Oh yeah, I mean, maybe Ryan can talk about his proposal. I know he's really able to present it very well. But for me, this is I'm super thankful for this proposal and interested in how it may turn out. And maybe just to give you a bit of context from my perspective, so the Streamr protocol is obviously like a real-time transport first, but the storage feature is very useful in most use cases. And so far, how we've approached it is that there's the concept of storage nodes in the network, where that are kind of each of those is operated by some central party, but then together, if there are many storage nodes, then you kind of achieve that decentralization, that your data points or messages would be stored in many different places, and achieving that redundancy and so on. And the kind of default track would have been to kind of just expand on what we have now, which is basically just one storage node run by the Streamr team, create some incentives there so that the owner of the stream can pay the storage nodes to store the data, and then it can be retrieved there and so on. But it's not easy to operate a storage node, to be honest. There's like operational overhead, and 5 years we've been waiting for someone else in the crypto space to build a protocol that could solve this problem. Some kind of decentralized database or something that would be performant enough and fast enough to be used to store the data in the Streamr network. And I'm super curious to see how this stack that Ryan is proposing here would perform. If I understand correctly, the proposal is not yet to kind of fully commit to this direction, but rather to build a prototype, take the first step in exploring this approach, and then later on decide if we want to kind of go full, all into that direction. But it's fantastic that someone else like Ryan is thinking about this problem that hasn't been exactly in the center of Streamr, but still like one of the key issues that help enable many use cases. So personally, I do support this proposal, but I still have to dive into the details of it a little bit. But do you, Ryan, want to kind of walk us a little bit through like your thinking there and why you thought this might be a good approach for Streamr?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the solution really started with the problem, right? And that problem was that like event-based data that originates on websites needs to pass through some centralized server to end up on a decentralized storage blockchain. And that's sort of wrong because a centralized operator could poison that data. Streamr removes that. It behaves as a transport mechanism that you can use to send that data to a network of nodes that draws consensus on what gets stored on a decentralized blockchain, or a decentralized storage blockchain. So, and then what that also enables is basically a bunch of Streamr data to end up on a storage blockchain that then others can use and depend on for their products. So you have like interesting scenarios where data sets can be produced and stored indefinitely on something like Arweave and then utilized, right? In some other blockchain or some other technology that's, building upon the Web3 ecosystem. And that sort of isn't accessible with the current track because the current track sort of requires, permission from the storer of the stream. Whereas if you just make your stream sort of like publicly accessible via on Arweave, it can, anyone can build on it, and it's permanent, right? There's no like limit of time that it lasts for. And you can, I'd encourage anybody interested in learning how it's indefinite or permanent to look into Arweave and look into the sort of like, promise or technology that's delivering on that outcome. But yeah, so started off with that problem of storing event data. And I guess the solution is like creating Logstash, if anyone's familiar with the Elastic Stack, but for a decentralized version. And that way you can just aggregate a bunch of data from websites, mobile apps, centralized servers, IoT devices. And then you can build like interesting, well, the intention on our end is to build interesting like, asset management processes based on data that's aggregated over the Streamr network, if that makes sense. So it needs to be highly dependable data. All right. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. I hope that explained that well.
No, that was awesome.
At least our intention.
Okay, so we're going to jump into a few questions on this. First one was from Bon Jovi in the community, relatively straightforward one. He said, I really like the idea of integrating into centralized storage solution. One thing that's unclear to me is where the funding will come from. Is it the Streamr ICO funding? Yeah, Henry, do you want to comment on this, or Ryan? Either of you is fine.
Yeah, I mean, if this gets accepted, then Streamr will definitely support this project from the project funding, which is from the ICO, or from the grant fund, which is kind of dead at the moment due to the market crash. So there isn't much funds in the grant funds. But anyway, like solving the storage problem is something that is on our roadmap and is kind of intended use for the project funds. And if I understood correctly, the Kive guys and potentially also Arweave are interested in chipping in to make this kind of three-way partnership or use case work.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're sort of like in talks with orchestrating that sort of partnership between, I guess, the three primary entities and our entity. So yeah, I think there's like definitely interest to make something like this exist. It solves a problem for Streamr, so it adds to the Kive network. It adds more data to the Arweave network, so it's like a net positive, which is awesome. Yeah.
This would be like, if this would kind of become the primary storage solution for the Streamr network, this would become like one of the biggest for sure the biggest use case for Kive, and like a major one for Arweave for sure as well. So these protocols should have interest in seeing how this turns out and supporting their own growth by making this happen. So it would probably be like a joint effort from a funding perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the scale at which it affects their networks positively, it should be like demonstrated through the proof of concept. So I think the milestones that we've established sort of like, is a good approach to this. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's good. We need it anyways. Like this is something that we're interested in tackling and doing regardless, sort of.
Great.
By we, you mean who exactly?
Usher. So our team. Yeah. Our team.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, guys. Okay, a few live questions coming through. Great proposal, Ryan. The .sol addresses are a wee bit scary, though. Hope the proposal doesn't depend on any integration with Sol. Yikes. I think a non-Solana fan there.
No Solana integrations. Unless there's big interest from the Solana community to store log-related data. I don't know why that'd be an issue considering their capitalization. But the Sol that you see in the proposal is referring to Solidity, which is EVM-based smart contract. Yep.
Got you. Okay, cool. Great. So it's purely EVM pure play rather than Solana. So I think that's going to keep everyone happy.
That's fair.
The next question that just came through in a slightly different tangent from the SIP 13 proposal was from Freya C. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but anyway, can you discuss the differences between Streamr and the Lightning Network in terms of data delivery? I've heard there's a chat app on the Lightning network being built. Henry, is that one that you could comment to?
Well, I mean, possibly. Like, obviously, the Lightning Network would be like a state channel thing for Bitcoin, but underlying that, there's surely like a message transport, right? Some kind of messaging protocol on the layer 0, so to say. So I'm not familiar with like the messaging capabilities in the Lightning Network, but it's probably like tapping into the capabilities of that layer 0 protocol, whatever it is that's being used there. And I think it has less to do with Lightning Network itself than the layer 0 protocol that's underneath. So, I think I would suspect that's how the chat app there works, but I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it. So Streamr is basically at the same layer in the sense that it's a layer 0 protocol, and something like Lightning Network could be built on top of Streamr. But Streamr also builds on top like some kind of higher level or more advanced features, like giving certain guarantees about the message delivery. Then there's the bindings into the storage stuff and so on. There's the end-to-end encryption and the key exchange mechanisms and things like this that are not present in most layer 0 protocols. That, they're kind of like advanced stuff instead of just trying to transport some raw bytes from one place to another. I don't know if the layer 0 in Lightning Network is like a pub/sub oriented protocol, which would be used for this topic-based messaging or broadcasting. In Lightning Network, you don't broadcast money, so it's kind of always point to point. So I think that would be, their messaging protocol doesn't need to be as flexible as Streamr. It kind of needs to be just like a point to point or peer-to-peer type of protocol. But yeah, I can't really speak to that much from any other perspective. That Streamr is kind of more productized perhaps for this kind of thing, where my understanding is that the Lightning Network is not built for building chat applications. It's built for something else, right?
And Henry, whilst we're on the topic, could you just give a quick couple of sentences on the chat app and the status of that? Because I know there's a little bit of excitement in the community.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so we kind of started out as a kind of demo, just to have an example application that people can understand that's built on Streamr. Since Streamr is a message transport, a chat app is a very viable thing to build. So our team has been kind of slowly working on that. The ambition level has just gone up, so like very much. Like, it started out, okay, let's build some simple demo that we can just show, like, okay, this is basically what Streamr can do. But now it's evolved into quite productized. It looks nice, it works well. It's become more like a WhatsApp competitor, like a decentralized WhatsApp rather than just a demo of Streamr. So I hope we can kind of get it out of the door at some point. But if the ambition level is rising as we go, then it means that it's never gonna be ready to launch. Yeah. So we just have to kind of cut it somewhere that, okay, now it's ready to be shown. But it's pretty cool. There's a couple of things that we are trying to add there still to make the UX better, and some of it some of it also relates to like kind of fundamental features of the Streamr network. For example, the requirement of publishers to stay online if the data is encrypted. So, you know, you have a key, you're encrypting some messages with that key, and you know, then you're gone from the network. You know, you go offline. Then some subscriber comes, get some messages from the storage, whatever it is, maybe it's Ryan's storage solution, and finds that encrypted data there. And then they're like, hey, excuse me, I need the key for this, but the publisher is gone, you know, they're offline. So the subscriber won't be able to get that key. And, you know, this can be solved, but it's a kind of hard one to solve in a decentralized way. And in the chat app, it would be visible in the way that, you know, if me and Mark and Ryan are in the same room and I send a message and Ryan happens to be online when I send the message, but Mark not. So Ryan will see the message, then I go offline. And then when Mark comes, he can see that I sent a message, but they can't see the content of that message because they weren't there at the time, right? So, and to work around this, we need to get the key somehow persisted somewhere. Maybe Ryan can give the key to Mark because he can validate, okay, Mark has permission to access the stream. Or what if there is no Ryan? You know, if it's just me and Mark wasn't there, then there needs to be some kind of third party that securely holds the keys and serves them to Mark on request. And there's some stuff, you know, we don't need to roll this by ourselves necessarily. There's some protocols starting to be out there that we can use for this. They're not necessarily very decentralized yet, but, you know, let's see. And stuff like that, you know, if we want it to be like perfect, like work as well as WhatsApp, that's tough. But if we can accept some, you know, corner cases related to the improved security and decentralization and cryptography that's going on there, then, you know, it's basically already ready to go.
Yeah. Not that I'm a fan of Zuckerberg, but and I'm going to misquote him slightly, but there was a quote he said once, which was, if you're not thoroughly embarrassed by your first product, you didn't get it to market quickly enough.
Yeah, so, we're far beyond embarrassed.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's pretty good. I've used it a lot. So we're just working on working on a bit of a go-to-market plan. So there's more of that to come in 2023. So look, guys, we're going to wrap up now because we're 20 minutes over. Apologies for the overrun, but we had a lot to get through. A big thank you to Henry for all of your insights, and I think the community would have found that beneficial as they make their votes on the various SIPs. Massive thank you to Ryan for joining the call, and thanks again for your proposal for SIP 13. Really well thought through and really well presented on the forum. And it's very late where Ryan is, so Ryan probably get a good night's sleep. And some shameless marketing plugs from my side. First off, we're going to add the Typeform sign up for beta testing for the chat app to the YouTube video bio when it's published. So if you want to become a chat app beta tester, click that Typeform link, sign up with your email address, and we'll be in contact. Not sure when that will be, but it'll be in the coming months. So please do that. Gentle reminder, if you're not already aware and you want your chance to earn some data points, please join the Stream Team app at friends.streamr.network. That would make my day. And finally, a big thank you to everyone in the community for joining this call and for listening and for making your votes on the various Streamr proposals on Snapshot. So I think that's it from us. Thank you very much. And yeah, we'll see you on Discord.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, audience.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.